It can feel at times as if everyone in the world is far too busy for a meaningful conversation, or simply too worried about what might happen if they actually did have one. It is my goal with the Mindful Image Project to offer a story with a photo, to give a voice to a face, and to show my appreciation for what I consider to be one of life's greatest gifts, the ability and freedom to simply say hello, and then follow that hello a bit further down the rabbit hole. With that in mind, I say to you, hello stranger, hello old friend, let's talk. All right, well, here we are at Good Earth Airdrie, the third episode of The Mindful Image. My name is Ryan Donnelly. I am the photographer and creator of this project, I should say. And we're sitting down with Zaire Seeley today, who is a spoken word poet.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing awesome, man. Really excited about this.
Excellent. Well, you are one interesting human being. I have had the pleasure of meeting your father a while back, who is actually he was on episode 1, which was Stuart Seeley. It seems like motivation is a big thing in your family. Has this always been that way?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I remember, I was just thinking the other day, kind of my earliest memories, and they were just really of my parents always putting us in a place of thinking greater, thinking beyond where we were. And for me, that was interesting at first because I started to realize a lot of my friends didn't have that kind of surrounding. But as I just continued to grow and ask more questions, my parents were always supportive and always wanted to challenge us just intellectually, spiritually, mentally, physically, whatever the case is.
So they've always been doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's incredible to have that sort of push. Yeah. Has your parents always, I guess you have 3 other brothers, right?
Yeah, I have 3 other brothers. I have 2 brothers from my parents and a half-brother as well from my father's first marriage.
Okay, yeah. And in that family situation, were you all kind of pushed in the direction that you could be whatever you wanted to be?
Yeah, for sure. You know, my parents were kind of just be the best at whatever it is that you choose, and they always made it a point to just provide the atmosphere for us to grow and prosper, and just kind of gave us opportunities, and whatever we naturally gravitated to, they would support.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's for me. That's what it's about. You know, as a parent, you should put your kids in a space to excel. You know, not necessarily dictate what they're gonna do. Just kind of supply the opportunities for them.
I actually find that to be one of the biggest things in society that's always bothered me is this concept that you need to be good at everything that they tell you that you want to do. Right. Essentially, don't pay attention to necessarily what you're good at, but pay attention to what's currently going to make you money.
Right.
Go to school, be a doctor. Actually, I'm just reading this book right now, and one of the stories in it, the guy's actually talking about that very thing. He's saying that one guy's just completely miserable because all he's doing is following what his parents do,
right.
But he's successful.
Right.
But then this other guy goes off and does what he's passionate about,
yeah.
Doesn't make a lot of money, but he's happy.
Yeah.
So which child should the parents be the most proud of?
Right.
The one who has money and is unfulfilled and unhappy?
Right.
Or the one who doesn't have a lot of money but has a smile on his face all the time?
For sure.
Which one should the parent be
Absolutely.
happy?
Yeah, that's an awesome point. You know, I think there's a motivational speaker I really enjoy listening to. His name is Les Brown.
Yep.
And he was saying people who live in their passion, they live longer. And for me, I'm kind of trying to understand, is it about, nobody seems to want to leave, everybody seems to want to be here. So is it about what will make us live longer or security? You know, so kind of like that. And for me, I just challenge myself in the understanding that if I'm living longer, I'll get more opportunities to obtain the security. And really, I just want to be able to provide food for myself, have clothes on my back, but continue to move in this space where I feel joy, where I'm helping people, where I'm opening minds up, and just showing people that there's so much more to this being here every day, doing the regular, what people suggest that you should do, what people tell you to do, you know, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's that whole concept of having animals. People who have animals apparently are happier and live longer. I don't know where that stat comes from, yeah. But probably PETA or something, but I believe it. I think if you have things that you're happy about, things that you wake up to and you're like, I'm glad I have this in my life. I'd say gratitude.
Absolutely.
The fountain of youth is probably found in gratitude.
For sure.
You know, I think it's somewhere in there.
For sure.
What you're saying makes a lot of sense, or what Les Brown said makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
which is passionate people will live longer. It happens all the time that you see people, they spend their whole lives working in something, and then they're needed and they're wanted and they make a lot of money and all that, and then they get retired and they have a heart attack
quickly. Yeah.
Like a month later, or they fall into a depression and they don't come out of it.
Yeah.
And that's just because the way the world is built, it seems, is that you're supposed to just be successful. You're not supposed to be passionate.
Yeah.
But you have a bunch of people who are telling you to be passionate.
Yeah.
And then the payoff is that you're retired and you get a heart attack. Like, that just does not seem like the way to live.
Well, I think it just goes back to this idea that for some reason we can't find fulfillment in all aspects of life. Like, we can't obtain wealth as well as joy and peace and harmony in the space where we are most positive, where we are like in our passions, that we can't achieve that. And I just, I've always encountered a lot of people. I make it a point to just have genuine conversations with people and understand where they are at in life. And I find that, as you said, a lot of people, when they retire, they're quickly like, yo, what do I do? This is like, I poured myself into all of that, and I don't feel like it poured anything into me. So for me, I just always kind of do something that I can give myself to, but also something that gives itself back to me as well.
I actually think that's something I always found in school, that you were never really taught about. Like, yeah, you were taught about art and stuff. Like, I really think that there's a basis for that.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they talk about enough of the importance behind art and how in your life it's not necessarily supposed to play a financial part.
Yeah.
It's supposed to play, like, that's your security for the future.
Yeah.
That's when you're, like, 65 years old, you could be painting.
Yeah.
You could be writing.
Absolutely.
You could be making music.
Yeah.
It's not about money at that point.
Yeah.
It's about, what do I do with my time? And if
Yeah.
you find your passions early enough, you get to take those passions with you all the way through your life.
Absolutely.
And when you're no longer in society's eyes, so to speak, and no one's calling you and saying, hey, we need you to work at 9 to 5, it doesn't matter because you have something amazing that day to do, right?
Yeah, I found that to be the biggest thing. I was having a conversation with my brother the other day, and we were just talking about when people find their passions. And I found that, and he was saying to me, not everyone was so fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to explore themselves at such an early age and find out what they want to do for the rest of their lives. So I started to understand as he was talking to me that people are really, as you said, in school and just their home environment, they're really not given the opportunities to explore all of themselves. And even if they do, are they given the confidence or the positive reinforcement to go forth and trust that they can make something of this,
Yeah, and it's probably always going to be that way. I think society is always going to be built on the concept that making money, keeping your head down, and not creating a fuss is probably the best way to go through life. At least the powers that be want us to believe that, right?
Yeah.
But we do have a lot of artists, like yourself, who do a spoken word, who are standing in front of thousands of people, and who are giving a message that's politically charged, emotionally charged, spiritually charged.
Yeah.
And you're waking people up. Like, how do you personally attack or approach, I should say, your own artistic view and what you do with spoken word? Like, what compels you to do this particular medium?
Yeah, for sure. I think in one aspect, it goes back to me when I felt like I was in school and going through a lot of those emotions of what am I here for? What am I doing? There has to be so much more than just what I'm seeing every day, because I wasn't seeing people that were happy. And for me, that's always been the biggest thing, to do things that are fulfilling for me. So I started going back, like in my mind, but also what I was presently doing, and that was always writing. No matter what, I grew up playing basketball, but I wouldn't take as much time playing basketball as I would going in my room and writing and reading and just being immersed in that space, in that creative space. And I started going over like the books I was reading and just the things I would always go back to. And when I was in class, I remember as I kept getting older, I would just be doing my homework, but then I'm like, I started writing on the side of the pages I'm supposed to be doing my homework in. So I'm like, man,
Right.
I have to start giving voice to this. And it was a challenge, it was really, for me, an existential crisis where I wasn't sure where I was going to go, and really like having difficulty with my mind frame and having a lot of negative thoughts, because I was told that I should go to school, that I should find this fulfillment in this space. But I wasn't, and I kept like wanting to write, and finally I just left school. My dad was supportive of that; he understood, and he kind of like guided me through that process a lot.
You feel at this point in your life you're kind of you're giving back to your father in the way of inspiration. I mean, I've been noticing that Stuart, which is his father, by the way, he himself is also into, you know, I'd say doing motivational poetry would be what I'd consider it.
Yeah.
Was that something that came prior to you, that love of the poetry, or is that something that he was inspired from you to do, or is he now becoming inspired because of you? Like,
you know, it's funny. He's always kind of been a motivational person. You know, he's always been in front of people and speaking. And I think as I kind of just got older and kind of explored my own space, I'm now coming to him with all these questions and stuff, and we're actually having genuine conversations, and he's learning things that he didn't know I knew, and I'm learning things I didn't know he knew. So we're just kind of simultaneously, I think, at the right place at the right time in terms of our journey, and just kind of like really getting into that father-son, mentor-mentee type of relationship where he's just really showing me that that you can reach more people when you're moving in your gifts and when you're moving with your talents and your purpose.
Yes.
So, like, to the second part of your question, I'm also compelled by seeing people after like shows and stuff, people saying like, thank you thank you to me for just the words that I expressed and being able to put it in a way that they were feeling but they didn't have the words for. So just bringing topics and issues to light and creating an environment where we can have a conversation, not out of anger, not out of sadness, but just have a genuine conversation and see what healing can come from that, what restoration can come from that.
That must be an amazing feeling to have people thank you for the work that you're putting out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, because I remember it hasn't been that long since I've been doing this, but when I first started, I was just every day in my room alone. You know, just like, is anyone going to pay attention to this? You know, I'm putting all of myself in this really in a closed environment, and I had taken like 6 to 8 months just writing myself. I didn't share anything with anybody.
Right.
So I'm like, yo, am I just crazy? Am I in my own head? Is anybody going to understand anything that I'm saying? But as I just like get more out there and start talking to people, they're like, you know, we're really connecting with your message. We're really understanding where you're coming from because that's where we are right now. So yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And I don't see how I would be able to touch as many people as I am if I'm not doing what I'm doing now.
Well, that's the double-edged sword of being an artist. I don't care what kind of artist you are, but you will always find your time in obscurity, which is it's a gift and it's a curse.
Absolutely,
because to hang out in obscurity and to have 8 months, as you said to yourself, there's a gift in that because you get to just explore yourself. You get to explore your mind. You get to hang out and like all those thoughts that you got that you're not telling anybody, right? And you get to put together something that you're excited about.
Yeah.
That's the good part.
Yeah.
The rough part is that there is that imp on your shoulder that kind of whispers in your ear the whole way saying, what you're doing shit, and this is not good. No, you're not going to reach anybody. And you just have to tell that thing to shut up. You know?
Absolutely,
And you got to embrace obscurity. I think I would say that to all artists. Embrace obscurity. I deal with a lot of bands, and you know, we talk back and forth, and they constantly ask me, like, I don't feel like people are listening to my music, and I don't feel like I'm gaining any traction, like nobody's liking my Facebook page, and nobody's buying my albums, and I try to explain to people that, you know, everyone in this world has their hand out for your money. Everyone. Everyone wants you to like their page. Everyone wants you to subscribe. Everybody wants you to go to their Patreon account and you know, donate some money. And that's all great. That's fine. That's a part of the ecosystem. But you have to understand that there's a waiting period to everything. The greatness doesn't happen overnight, nor should it. And if greatness does happen overnight, it's probably been packaged by a company that throws enough money at it that they can blow you up in a day. And is that real? Is that going to resonate with people? Like, probably not. Maybe if you're Justin Bieber and you just enjoy filling up clubs. But if you're looking for real depth, I think it takes a little bit longer.
Absolutely.
You got to age it like a fine wine, right? Well, you know, one thing I learned recently was about, I always wondered how with the New York Times, when it says New York Times bestseller, and it came out that day. And I'm like, how do they stamp it with New York Times bestseller on the very day it came out?
That's
like,
a good point.
That's impossible, right? So I looked into it, and I actually found that what happens is the publishing company has to buy, I think, $75,000 worth of books to gain that title. So what they do is they actually will buy that many books and allocate those books to bookstores all across Canada and all across the States. And once they have that purchase order that says, we've actually sold 75,000 books, they can go to they can go and get that title.
We're getting behind the scenes now.
Yes.
But see, that's an interesting point. Even though it speaks to the level of confidence that they have in the product, right? So I think it goes back to, as we were talking about earlier, just kind of manifestation, speaking what is going to happen, what I believe is going to happen, you know. So as you're saying, like the imp on my shoulder saying what I'm doing is not good, is not going to excel. Simultaneously, I'm saying it is. I'm going to reach these people. More doors are going to open up. And as you were saying about talent and gifts, they have to age like fine wine. I was reading a book called Blessed in Darkness by Joel Osteen, and he makes like a brilliant kind of analogy where he says, you're planted, not buried. And for me, that was incredible. That just that just shook me, you know, because it comes to perspective. You know, you have to go into that dark space, that night season, but then you have to understand that process that's taking place, and you have to go into that process knowing, okay, I'm coming out of this. It's just a period in time. It's a transgression. It's a growing season, but I'm going to emerge. You know, so it's just kind of the mind frame that I have. And you know, with the books, it's like I'm going to have that level of confidence in myself. The same thing that company is having for their product. I think you first need to have it for yourself. You know, you need to trust that what you're doing is for yourself. Remember the reason why you first got into doing what you're doing. It was for the love. It was for the passions, because you were moved. And you know, when I create genuine things that move me, I know it's going to move people, but I also don't care necessarily if it doesn't, because I know that it was moved. I know that I'm a better person. I know that I'm challenged in my mind. I know that I'm going to walk out the day feeling more excited because of something that came into my spirit and came into my mind that made me think differently, that shook my world up.
Yeah, that's actually, I mean, it's a real solid point, man, is that you do this for yourself. You do art in any facet, any medium. You do for yourself. And I say to people all the time, and I remind myself all the time that, I move you because I first moved myself. Yeah. And I don't think you can speak without moving somebody. Mm-hmm. I don't think you can say something or even have a thought that isn't going to be accepted by somebody else. Right. The idea that you have to hang out in obscurity, that nobody's going to like your stuff, is probably the most ridiculous thing anyone can feel. Because the truth is, someone's always going to believe in what you're talking about. Yeah. Someone's had your struggles. It's not to say your struggles aren't important. It's just to say, like, if you're suffering from heartache, somebody's felt that. Right. If you had a hard time at your job, somebody's felt that. If you had cancer come into your life, somebody's felt that. Yeah. And I think, it's pretty safe to say that we have to stop worrying about Facebook likes, and we have to stop worrying about people who have signed on and to our projects, and we have to stop worrying so much about our fan bases. Yeah. Because these things grow quietly in obscurity. Here's the interesting thing about marketing that I've learned, and that is that it starts out in obscurity, much like the artist does. Absolutely. You could have a fire right now starting in Winnipeg, and you wouldn't know that fire was happening. Right. You don't know if people are talking about the last spoken word that you did there, and that they're sharing that, they're talking about it, and that just needs to get to the right person who's got the money and has the hookups, and then they give you a call and say, hey, let's do this, right? And, I say that to bands all the time, too. I'm like, listen, you're probably not going to be liked in your backyard. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But you might be liked somewhere else. Yeah. Like, somebody who listens to country music, they're going to get picked up in Nashville. Yeah. They're going to get picked up in the UK. Yeah. But they're probably not going to get picked up in Russia. Right. So, like, don't try to win everybody over, right? Right. Sorry to anybody in Russia. I'm sure you guys like country, but absolutely. I haven't seen it. But yeah, so I definitely feel you got to believe in yourself. I hear what you're saying. So let's talk a bit about your spoken word here.
Yeah, for sure.
What was something I recently saw on YouTube? You did a spoken word about Muhammad Ali. Yeah. What's okay? So tell me about that. Where was it at? How did this come about? What was the importance of the message? Let's hear it from you.
Yeah. So it kind of goes back a while, actually. I was a member of a slam team in Calgary, and that's for anybody that doesn't know, slam is just like live poetry performed, much more dramatic. I'll say that's really the distinction, and kind of more tied into theater. So I was a part of that team, and while I was in Ontario competing, one of the ladies had invited me to do this show for in honor of Muhammad Ali at We Day. And We Day is essentially for students. I think it's held across Canada and maybe some places, some international places. But it's just students from all over Calgary in this instance, and they came to the Saddle Dome. So it was around 19,000 students and different sort of people. And so they just invited me to do a poem in honor of Muhammad Ali, and I was able to meet his daughter, Rashida Ali. And
wow.
So
what
it was a crazy experience. And I remember the day Muhammad Ali had died a few years ago, I like, me and my friend were driving around, and I was like, yo, Muhammad Ali died. And I was taken aback because I had watched his progression. He was one of the boxers that inspired me a lot, and just the way that he spoke and commanded an audience.
Yeah.
And so it was just such a crazy experience, and I'm so blessed to have that tie-in, to have that real moment for myself, to be connected to him in my own life, and then to take that and show my appreciation for that on a grand stage was incredible. Yeah, absolutely.
Must have been really scary to talk in front of 19,000 people.
It's crazy because it's very dark, so it's hard to see that many people.
Oh, okay.
And,
so it's just the front row?
Yeah. So I was really just seeing the front row, but it was crazy because I was watching the video, and I saw it back. I heard the loud applause, and I was seeing the stands. I'm like, damn, there's that many people. If the lights had been on, it might have been a different thing. But yeah, for sure.
I think in those cases, they say you're supposed to picture the audience naked.
Right.
That still would freak me out, right?
Yeah. But it's all a progression, right? So it's 19,000 people for me is becoming no difference than speaking to one person. It's just, staying in those real moments.
It's the same intensity,
exactly,
the same motivation behind it.
Absolutely, yeah. So even going back to your point earlier about kind of growing your fan base, I'll say for me, I want to give the same level of passion, intensity, if I'm performing for one person or 19,000 people. I want to still give you all of myself, right?
Oh, see, that's perfect. Actually, I probably mention too often in these podcasts, and there's only 3, and I think I've mentioned it once each time, but one of my favorite artists, if not my favorite artist, is Maynard James Keenan of Tool. And one thing he pointed out was that whenever they did a show,
yeah,
they gave 100%.
Absolutely.
If it was an audience of one person,
yeah,
or an audience of thousands,
yeah,
they still acted as if there was just the room was packed,
yeah,
right? And he said that intensity never gave up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really believe that artists who operate at that level of, I will not change my energy based on who's watching,
yeah,
those are the ones who stand out.
For sure.
Those are the ones who, like, when they're remembered back when they started, people are like, oh man, you remember when like Zaire first started, man, he was killing it.
Right,
there was like
right,
one person in the crowd who was drunk, and wasn't even there to see him.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he was just killing it, right? So.
For sure. For me, those are, like, I love those kind of intimate settings as well, right? Everything has its place and its time, so I love those intimate settings where, yeah, there probably should have been and could have been more people, but when there's fewer, afterwards I can have a real conversation with people. And that's kind of, for me, I realize that my poetry is really just an entry card. It really just gets me in the door of conversations with people. It's really my in for people to be at ease and speak about their problems, and for me to share my experiences and stories. So,
is there something that you are using other than life experiences? Is there a way that you prepare for spoken word? Like, is there, like, do you dive deep into psychology books and like what? How are you going about this whole process?
Yeah, for sure. I'll say faith has been my biggest thing. So faith and prayer, and just kind of getting in that space of understanding that it's so much bigger than me, that I only have control over myself, but the doors that open up, the spaces I go into, that's beyond my control. So really just understanding where I put my faith, where understanding the whole process that it took for me to be here. For me, I don't feel like my time here and anybody's time here at the specific place you find yourself in life is an accident. And for me, I just kind of move with that mindset and continue to reinforce that, continue to build on that, and just, diving deeper in my faith and understanding how this has all come together.
Like you are exactly where you need to be, sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think wherever you are, nothing is permanent. You won't always be there, especially if you set your mind to not always be there. I hope for more. I believe in more. I know that more is coming. It's on the way, and it's already here.
Right. You're just Your level of intensity doesn't really ever give up, I can tell. I've noticed the first few times you met, you're very silent. You listen.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's a skill not everyone has, right? Everyone usually waits to say their points.
Right.
If I do sound like that on these podcasts, it is literally only because I'm just starting this podcast and I'm trying to make sure that I get in all these questions. Right.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think everything you're saying is like really interesting, man. But going back to what I was just saying here, so you got this faith. Everything in your life seems to have this real authentic intensity to it. I would say, obviously, where you're from and who you are, those are really important things.
Yeah.
So, where are you from? Where's your heart from? Like, where were you born? Where do you live? And if you could be anywhere in the world, where would that be?
So I'll start one by one. Yeah. So first, it's interesting that you asked those questions because I read a book that really, when I first started my journey, my dad had given me the book. And it's called Burden of Freedom by Miles Monroe, and it challenged me because it asked questions: where am I from? Why am I here? Where am I going? Who am I? What can I do? And it asked those questions in quick succession. I had to write them down and really think about it. So for me, I'll say I'm from heaven. I'll say I'm from the kingdom. I don't think our mindsets and our spirits are from this world. And so I kind of live in that space. I kind of live in an understanding that, there's a verse in the Bible that I always go back to. It says, set your sights on things above. So I make it a point because, man, living here is hard. Living in this world, if you're really looking at everything that's going on, it's tough and it's difficult. And
suffering upon suffering upon
man.
suffering.
So for many years, I love history and I love kind of current events. And, that took a deep toll on me, like a heavy burden on me, because I would take the cares of the world and everything, but I realized that wasn't helping me help people.
Right.
So I kind of just began to look at sort of these teachings and, just people that would come before me and how they got through and what it was that made them prosper and enrich their minds and their spirits. And it's still a process. I'm still getting there, but it's just renewing my mind every day on things that I'm here to do good deeds. I'm here to love people. I'm here to show my concern. I'm here to be the best I can be so I can allow others to do that. I'm here to open doors for other people the same way doors are being opened for me.
So you feel like the great exchange is that you're in service to people,
Absolutely.
in service to humanity.
Yeah.
And therefore humanity will be in service to you.
Absolutely. I find everything's a give and take. Everything's a push-pull. And I'm always about fair exchanges. For me, that's my biggest thing. So,
equality.
Yeah, for sure. So
Gotcha.
I always try to give myself to people. even if I don't necessarily have the time, I always take time to talk to somebody. I always take time to ask somebody this and that, because for me, I'm not here forever. I don't know what else we're doing here, unless to just share in communion and fellowship with other people.
So I feel like you just answered all three of my questions with like one thing. I mean, you're like, where are you from? It's like, well, I'm from heaven, and it's like, oh, I guess that's where your heart is too then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, on earth, heaven aside, is there any place that you've been to that your heart calls out to a bit more than others? Like
so I was born and raised in Montreal, and I spent the first 16 years of my life there. So, I mean, of course, everyone who's been to Montreal knows it has a different kind of pulse,
Yeah.
a very exciting city, and always things going on, kind of akin to New York of Canada, right?
Yeah.
Things never sleeping. And, I'm more of a laid-back, kind of quiet guy, so I enjoy Calgary for the time being, and I think, I hear its pulse, but I want to tap it up a little further. I want to get it going, so I find it a joy to be here right now to kind of provide the electricity to sort of bring it more to life. And I take things that I've seen in Montreal, and as I've traveled around, I've never been to the West Coast, anywhere on the West Coast. Calgary's the furthest I've been, but I've been all up and down the East Coast to like Orlando and New York, different places like that. So, for me, every place has its pros and cons. Every place kind of moves me. I'm still looking for my kind of place on earth that I really feel at peace in. But, Calgary's nice for the time. I prefer it over Montreal in terms of the quietness, but also sometimes it gets a little upbeat. Whereas Montreal, I find your voice can get drowned in all the excitement, all the noise.
Yeah, I think that probably happens in the major cities.
Yeah.
I think like Toronto is a giant mega city. Like it is huge,
Yeah.
you know, and I think trying to be an artist there can feel a little daunting at times.
Yeah.
If you haven't been to Vancouver, man, my God, you got to go.
I'm going to Vancouver actually in April, the end of April, for a slam competition. It's my first time out there, so I'm excited for that.
Are you going to have time to actually hang out there?
I'm thinking about extending my stay, if not, because I really wanna see Vancouver.
Trust me on this one.
Yeah.
Like, you got to go. You got to stay for a few days.
Yeah.
You got to check out. Like, you got to go down by the ocean. You got to go to, like, Granville.
Right.
You got to go to the art hubs there.
Okay.
If you don't walk the streets where the art hubs are,
Yeah.
you're missing out.
I'll make sure I do that. You know, I wanted to go to Vancouver and just the West Coast since I've just grown up, and so I'm excited just to see kind of the energy. And I know it's an artistic place, so just kind of see how my artistry translates there.
Well, I'm from the island myself. Like, that's
okay.
originally where I'm from.
Yeah. I didn't even know that. Okay.
Yeah, like my heart is straight with the ocean.
Right,
you know,
right.
like I love the mountains. I'll never go anywhere where there's no natural beauty.
Right.
It has to either be mountains or it's got to be the ocean.
Yeah.
I'm not moving back to Edmonton. I was there for a while. I'm done. Sorry, Edmonton. But yeah, you're gonna go there, man. We're gonna have a conversation when you get back, and you're gonna tell me you loved it.
It's a done deal.
Yeah. So I didn't ask here, but we should let people know how old you are. So
yeah. So I'm just turned 22 recently, February 10th, and born in 1996. So I'm 22.
So 22, is that you're the youngest of the brothers?
Yes. I am the baby, they'll say, so to speak.
Your dream job, man. Where's obviously spoken word, can open so many doors, but is there a job kind of out there that you'd like to be doing along with the spoken word or outside of the spoken word?
For me, it's just I want to be me. I want to be able to be me to the fullest. I guess in terms of legitimate jobs, also personal training, I do that as well. So I'm working towards right now getting my certified personal trainer, and I used to play basketball, and when I moved to Calgary from Montreal, I started weight training and got into bodybuilding. So I've started to really enjoy that, and just kind of the challenge it puts on my mind and my spirit, and just the wanting to help people in that aspect of their lives, because that also opened doors for me, and it's needed for me in terms of performing. In terms of like breath control and just motion and movement, it's really helped me in performance. So, that'd probably be the other thing that I'd speak on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that your dad, obviously, he's a huge powerhouse when it comes to physical training. He knows so much about the body and
wealth
so
of
much
knowledge for sure.
We talked for quite a while on that about the importance of maintaining your physical body and how that affects your mind and it affects your energy and affects your state, and that there's so many different ways to getting healthy that you don't have to just go like, I need to be at the gym.
Right.
Like if the gym isn't your thing, maybe you're a surfer. Maybe you just need to be surfing more. Or maybe you need to jog.
Yeah.
Who and what inspires you?
Man, there's a slew. It's kind of gone through stages, like sort of I've met both in like living and passed away now, people at the right times in my life that have kind of elevated me to different states. So growing up, it was really like when I was like 16, I got into Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, a lot of like civil rights leaders, because I was looking for my identity to understand who I was as a black man, and trying to understand that. So Malcolm X was very big. I read his book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X, and that helped me crazy, like just open my mind up to a lot of things. Going on further, Miles Monroe, as I mentioned, Les Brown, as I mentioned, my father, of course, both of my brothers, more specifically my oldest brother Elisha, he has a lot of wisdom too when I can catch him. So just kind of in terms of writing, I grew up reading like Ernest Hemingway, and I love the way he writes in terms of rap, like Nas and Kendrick Lamar. Just a lot of different artists, a lot of different just thinkers and men of faith and different things like that. Yeah,
I'm actually a huge fan of Lupe Fiasco.
Lupe is my man too. I gotta shout him out.
That is
not bad.
His first album, Lasers.
Yes.
That is incredible.
Lasers crazy. Yeah.
Actually, I probably listened to that Oh, I listen to it a few times a week. So
Yeah, Lasers, he had a song called Beautiful Lasers.
Incredible.
And, yes, and he was like dealing with like depression and suicide and stuff. So when that first came out, I was in that heavy, just like that frame of mind. He shot through the darkness for real on the...
Yeah, actually, you know, come to think of it, that's kind of a vibe I get from what I've heard you do.
Right.
So speaking of that, you have recently put out a project that had music associated with it. So tell us a bit about that project.
Yeah, so that piece is called Black Woman, and man, that piece was long in the making before I put music to it. It really came from when I was in Montreal. I went back to visit, and I hung out with one of my great friends. She's also an artist. I got to shout her out. Her name is Shauna White. She's a visual artist, incredible.
Yeah, I saw that piece of work. It was beautiful.
Yeah, she's incredible. And one of my best friends, you know, I've known her for almost a decade now, I think. And yeah, she just kind of shared her experiences with me. And I came back from Calgary and was really just kind of heartbroken in a way, because I had left at a time where I would have wanted to be in her life, you know, as sort of just a male figure, you know. I would have wanted to be in her life. So
right.
I started to understand the dynamic between me as a black man and her as a black woman, and understanding the relationship throughout history. And then I met my father, actually, always connecting a brother. He had met a guy named Mitch Favre, and he does production and makes beats. So me and him got into the studio, and I laid down the vocals, and we kind of came up with the beat and what felt right for the mood and stuff. And yeah, for me, it just sounded great. Yeah,
it's
really
such a killer track.
Appreciate
man. Like,
that.
It's so emotionally driven.
Yeah.
Are you going to be doing more? Like, you guys going to be teaming up more for some stuff?
I'm going to try to get in touch with them. I'm actually started putting some pieces together for a project, a full-length spoken word album that I want to do with music as well. And I'm actually lining up to release another track with one of my good friends. His name is Timothy, and he's a brother from Cameroon, and crazy vocals. And so I want to get him on the project. We're going to release that track soon. And I'm not sure if it's going to be a part of the project, but I definitely want to continue to work with him, and maybe get in touch with Mitch as well, because that production was crazy. So
I think that's powerful.
Yeah.
I think like if you end up opening a bunch of doors when you start embracing collabs with other people.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
I believe like music along with the word, you know, music, and you even see it like if you go on say YouTube and you type in Alan Watts chill step.
Yeah.
And they'll play like chill step, but then
Right.
they'll have Alan Watts talking about all of his theories.
Yeah,
I mean, it's possibly one of the coolest things out there.
Yeah, for sure. Those are one of like sort of like, I go to the gym and I'm listening to like motivational speaking with the music on top.
Yeah.
And just it kind of brings it so much more to life. And I found that with my music with my spoken word as well. When I apply music to it, it adds another layer of sort of the mindset I put myself in when I was creating. Because a lot of the times when I'm creating, I'm listening to instrumentals, a lot of jazz and soul instrumentals, and that kind of sets the mood. So for me, it's only right that I start applying music to it.
I mean, I get that. For me, I have to believe in what I'm listening to.
Yeah.
I can't just listen to music objectively.
Yeah.
It's like, it has to be, the lyrics that are spoken have to resonate with me.
100%.
I don't really get comedy humor.
Yeah.
That's just not my thing, because I'm probably too serious.
Right.
I go around, you know, ripping apart the world in my mind. But I love serious music, and I love thoughtful music, motivation stuff. I mean, I think I listen to that more than I listen to anything. So
yeah, it's funny. My brother, like, we used to go for a lot of drives just around the city, and he would play like he listens to a similar kind of music, but he's always bobbing his head. But me, I'm so focused on the lyrics that I'm just sitting straight. I'm like so fixed and stoic. And he's like, "Yo, are you enjoying the music?" I'm like, "Man, I'm having a great time."
Yeah, like inside my mind,
exactly.
Like, dude, this is a party. Yeah. This is awesome. Like,
exactly.
Like, I just need to listen to this lyric.
Yeah.
Something's happening here, right?
Absolutely.
It moves you. I think I struggled for a long time about, like, I love art in all forms, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I used to draw. I painted for a while.
Crazy.
I even tried carving for a bit, which I do love. It's awesome. I mean, I play instruments, photography, right? I mean, I essentially just live as much of an art as I can.
Yeah.
And there's certain art forms that, if there's one out there that like sticks with me, it's music.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's just I don't create art without music.
Yeah.
Or maybe this podcast is art. There's no music going on right now, but generally speaking, if I'm writing, I have a soundtrack for that.
Yeah.
If I'm doing photography, I bring along music usually.
Yeah.
Like, I think music's so powerful. So.
Absolutely. I think for a lot of people, you know, for me, like music, I have slowly built up my playlist to over like 5,000 tracks. I truly believe there's a soundtrack for everything you're going through, you know. So I have like so many different playlist names for whatever season I'm in, and yeah, music has played such an instrumental role in my life. And there's so many different sounds and kind of artists creating just little subtle nuances that can just like pull you to a next level, a next space. So,
oh, it's incredible to see the levels of talent.
Yeah.
And I don't think that necessarily if you're the most skilled person that you're the best. I don't really perceive art like that, because anybody who looks at Van Gogh would look at his paintings and say, they're pretty good. Yeah. But like, look at this person, they do hyper realistic stuff. Like,
absolutely.
And it's like, you can't compare that. It's like, you can't compare, say, Jimi Hendrix and then compare Kurt Cobain and say which one's the better guitarist.
Yeah.
It's like, realistically, we know the more talented, and while Jimi Hendrix is quite powerful, quite skilled, he is probably one of the best guitarists in the world, period, right? But one thing I love about, you know, Nirvana and Kurt Cobain was that he made a very simple guitar and simple riffs move an entire culture as well.
Absolutely.
So it's difficult for me to say this person's better than that person. I just say different.
Yeah.
I don't really say better anymore.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the people that we gravitate to are just the ones that are truest to themselves. Kind of you start to learn the rules and then eventually break them. You know, kind of bend them to your own will. And for me, that's the real testament of mastery. You know, when you can go beyond what is expected, what the traditional rules of something is, and I made this my own, right? So
yeah, you see it all the time. I think with the internet being what it is, and how you can see opinions on top of opinions, you know, giving birth to new opinions, you know, and that's all it is, right?
Yeah.
I've got to the point now where I will not comment on anything online.
Absolutely.
Like, even if I feel like I have to say something, I just force myself not to, because it is a mess of people saying, no, you're wrong and this is why, right?
Right.
When it comes to music, it's so personal that you can't, in any way, you can't be like, well, this band is the best band and you should like this band. It's like, listen, Tool might be my favorite band, all right? But if you don't like Tool, that's fine.
Yeah.
If I think Lateralis is the best album ever made, but is that album going to resonate with somebody who doesn't have Buddhist tendencies or somebody who doesn't pay attention to mathematical, geometrical, but whatever they're into, their philosophies, right? And I think that's what I'm noticing now, like, as I get older, and I mean, you're quite young, man, so congratulations on coming to that understanding.
Appreciate
but you don't fight for your team. You simply let people see, you shine the light on it, and you say, this is my style, I hope you like it. Not, this is my style, you better like it.
For sure,
right?
That's more what I'm coming into, kind of that point that you're making, because, you know, as you said, like, my passion and intensity can get to the point where I'll fight for causes, right? But
of course.
Now I'm just kind of like, this is what I walk in, this is what I move. You with it or not, it's not going to change it. I'm still going to move in it, you know?
Yeah.
So,
like, I think you can fight for, like, a revolutionary attitude.
Yeah.
I think the message behind a band, like, if a band comes out and they say, this group is being, essentially just being punished for no reason, or you know, we're putting these people in jail, or we're abusing this community of people, I get that you can fight for that cause.
Yeah.
That's cool. I think the biggest problem that I'm finding is that people are they're spending their time saying this band's better than that band, or this book's better than that book. Oh, if you like this movie, well, you'll like this movie better. It's, I mean, I get we have to have opinions, but it just seems so useless to me. Like, it's not important.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the kind of, you know, the internet kind of just magnifies things, right? But it comes from the concept that we're really listening to respond. Right, we're not really listening to see each other's side, or kind of like, okay, you mess with that, so let me kind of see where you're coming from. Even if I don't like it, even if it doesn't move me, I can appreciate it, you know? So for me, it's just, I stay away from those kind of conversations and just kind of like enjoy what I enjoy and want to share it with people, and, you know, it's up to them after that.
Absolutely. You don't get stuck in the mentality that opinion is authority these days, right? When it comes to your spoken word, like, how do you feel like the general public is receiving that particular art form? Are you finding you're having to teach them to like it, or do you think they naturally like it? Or you know, how do you feel this process is going?
For me, I feel like spoken word in general, just the art form hasn't really given its proper showcase in the world, I think, on sort of the grand stage. It hasn't really been showcased as a true and legitimate art form. So I'm not finding that. I find that people really love it. They just haven't been introduced to it before. They've just like,
Right.
what is this? I've never been here before. I've never seen this. I didn't know something like this existed, especially in this city. So I'm finding not necessarily teaching, but just showing people, and they're beginning to learn more about it. Especially in this city, I'll say Calgary is kind of a little behind on the spoken word scene, but I think they're gradually beginning to appreciate it and come out and understand that spoken word can exist. One, it can exist with music, and also in those spaces which music inhabits, right? Where all these art forms are, spoken word can also have that stage as well.
Absolutely. How many of you guys are kind of collectively doing the spoken word thing together?
Yeah, so for me, like mainly I move with one of my good friends. His name is Ephraim Boache, Brother E, he goes by, and yeah, he's another spoken word artist. So me and him are just kind of collaborating, and that's like the main one I work with right now. And I'm just kind of interested right now in crossing genres and kind of getting to know musicians and actors and dancers, and just kind of incorporating spoken word into those themes and those stages. Because it's all art at the end of the day, right? It's
Yes.
all art, and it can. It's like if one art form can speak to you, imagine two art forms simultaneously. The level that can speak to you. So, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
That is awesome. And then there's no shortage of talent in Calgary. Like,
Yeah, that's
we've incredible bands, incredible painters, incredible everything.
That's been like Calgary is like kind of like untapped potential. Like people are like, when people get a hold of this, as I'm doing spoken word, I'm getting into like a lot of the music scene, and I'm like, whoa, these people deserve huge stages right now.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible artistry going on.
It'll come. I think you have to, wherever you live, it's going to dictate how big you can kind of blow up, so to speak. I feel Calgary as an art scene is trying to grow.
Yeah.
You can see it in the buildings.
Yeah.
They're changing the buildings.
Absolutely.
Things are getting more artistic.
Yeah.
The architecture is getting more interesting.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a push on the city to create more art.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it lacks. I know when you go to Montreal, there's art everywhere, and I know when you go to Vancouver, you're going to notice that the whole place is like living in a painting.
Yeah.
It's really awesome.
For me, it's such an exciting time for Calgary because of that, right? For me, Calgary is relatively a young city, and relatively young in terms of its mindset, because this place has been dominated by oil and business and big business, right?
Yes.
So I think as like that kind of fades into the background, it's going to open up a platform for culture, and I'm excited to be a part of that, and just like shout out anybody that's doing that, because culture is what is going to drive you to the city. And for me, I'm seeing the tie-in between business and culture now.
Yes.
For me, people when they come for business meetings, they also want to go to a cultural. They want to see the city. They want to see the attraction of the place. So they go hand in hand.
And will make for a better city.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge fan. Like, I go to Mexico, and I gotta say, like, just to see the colors of Mexico, to see it's almost like they just want to be happy.
Yeah.
Like, at the core, they just want to be happy, right?
Yeah.
So they got these colorful buildings, and the culture and the business there. I'm a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that life here. Like, I want to see more color, more.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think once we get away from that kind of that business brown color that permeates everything in that cold steel look,
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, let's move on to a question I ask everybody so far. So, is there a band, a book, and a movie you think I should check out?
Man, we're gonna be here for a while. I don't necessarily have bands right now. I kind of have more like, I'll give you like two songs that have really been on my mind lately.
Sure.
One was New York Minute by Dan Haley. I recently came across that, and that was just crazy. And then, because she keeps coming on my mind, and I'm upset that I can't find the song, because the song's not released yet. But there's a lady by the name of Alice Smith, and she has a song called All Runs Out. And it's only like performed live. The song's not released yet, but I heard it the other day, and that just caught me on another level. So,
so I better check that out.
Yeah. A movie. Man, I'm very old school when it comes to my movies, so it's tough to pick one. I'm gonna think on it and get back to you.
Okay.
And then a book, finally, I'll say Burden of Freedom, as I mentioned before, by Miles Monroe, and Blessed in Darkness by Joel Osteen.
All right, fantastic. Well, you can get back to me on the
I'll get back
the
to
movie
you
at the end of
before
this.
we're done.
Okay. What is something you wish people would notice about you?
Maybe that shoot, what happiest people? I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of guarded in terms of who I let in. So just, I guess, more that I'm approachable, and more that, you know, I do love having conversations. I love like having fun and stuff like that. But just notice that at first you're not going to get everything from me. You know, for me, I'm a person where it takes time. You have to dig into me for me to fully open up to you. So just that it takes time. You know, it takes time for me to show you all of me.
There's a process in getting down to the deeper layers.
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of on Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours. If you want to get to know me.
So you're an open book, but only if you read.
Yeah, you got to ask questions. You know, everything will be revealed. Ask the questions, but I'm not one to just meet you and just tell you my whole story. You know, I like when people ask me questions. So
I feel that. What is one of your greatest achievements?
Greatest achievements for me. I'll use an analogy. It was, you know, stepping off the boat and discovering that I can walk on water. So for me, my greatest achievement is stepping outside of everything I thought I was supposed to be, everything I thought I was going to be, and, you know, beginning this process of spoken word. And it's not just spoken word, it's the process of me understanding destiny and purpose and the gifts that I have. So just kind of moving in that space. That's been my greatest achievement so far.
Very poetic and fitting.
True to form.
Yeah, exactly. Are you currently happy, fulfilled, or other?
I am fulfilled. I always go with joy than happiness. There's a show called Mad Men, and he says, "What's happiness but a minute before you need more happiness?" So me, I kind of prefer joy because joy seems for me more internal, and it's been a process. But you know, I am much more in that space now. I found I had to kind of let some people go, reestablish what is most important and who is here for me before I started any of this. And as I've done that, as I'm doing that, I've become more joyful and more fulfilled because I'm knowing that I'm on the right path, and that, you know, people may say this and that, but they're not going to stop me because I know I'm on the right path.
And I guess the other thing to ask with this question is, do you have anything that's getting in the way of your own success?
You know, I remember sitting with you, and you were kind of telling me that if anybody or anything is getting in the way of your success, remove it, you know? So for me, not now. And if there is, and there probably still is, you know, there's unknown unknowns, right? So if there is, it's only me. It's only me, because at the end of the day, I'm allowing something or somebody into my space. So it's only me, and I'm learning to I took a lot of responsibility before, but now I'm taking full responsibility for, you know, just, this is me. This is what I've chosen, you know. I walk or sink because of myself, you know.
So just 100% ownage on all of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's power in that.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing for a lot of people, taking ownership and responsibility. As I, you know, that book, Burden of Freedom, he says, freedom is responsibility, you know, to know that there is limitations, you know. So for me, there's no limitations in the limitations, right? If you want to reach success, you need to have discipline. You need to impose limitations on yourself. So when I've strayed off the path, it's because I allowed things and people into my life that weren't of one mind and one purpose with me.
So you really feel that you are who you hang out with? Is that...
Yeah, that's
kind of an important statement.
Yeah, for sure. You know, one of my friends, Ephraim, as I hung out with him more, you know, I was still in a space where I was still trying to come into this new season of my life. And as I met him, he's a very like intelligent and knows exactly kind of the way he wants to walk in life. As I started walking with him, I started to understand I need to let the things that I needed to let go in order to kind of our friendship to prosper, and also myself to come into this new season. So absolutely, you are who you hang out with, for sure.
Better to hang out with one person who gets you than to hang out with a crowd.
Yes, absolutely.
I think it's really good advice for people.
Yeah.
You know, there's a real deep sense of needing to be loved by everybody these days. I've been reading a lot of stuff on social media and the psychology behind it, and even people who have left Facebook, who started Facebook, have left and said, we're sorry, like, we're ripping apart the fabric of society, like, we're deteriorating society.
Yeah, that's a stellar point.
Yeah, like, these guys are coming out and they're saying, like, what we've created was meant to own you.
Right.
Like, you could talk all day long about how you're not addicted to Facebook,
Yeah.
or you're not addicted to Instagram, or you know, you're not addicted to YouTube or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
right? The truth is, most people are, and the only way that you're going to find out if you're addicted to anything
Yeah.
is to not do it.
Yeah.
It's to take it out of your life.
Yeah.
If you think that you're not addicted to Facebook, and you even need to make that comment,
Yeah.
get off Facebook.
Yeah.
Just for 1 month of your life, just don't even look at it.
Yeah. You know, this past weekend I took 48 hours, shut off my phone. I was fasting and just in a space where I'm not going to touch any of this stuff, and I found I was much more joyful. I was much more creative, and I had found, you know, to that point, I found maybe 6 months ago, I was in a space where checking Facebook and Instagram all the time, and I was like, yo, I can't even write right now. I can't even be in that zone because it's taking attention away, and you know, psychologically, it's taking attention away. Even if you're not noticing it consciously, it definitely is, you know. So I found that, and just live in the here and now, you know, have true conversations with the people. And for me, if I speak to somebody on the internet or anything, it's only to set up a meeting in person.
The same answers you hear from people. It's like, well, why don't you get off Facebook? And like, well, my family's on Facebook. It's how I keep in contact with people. And you're like, why don't you just call them?
Yeah.
Why don't you just pick up the phone and
Yeah.
actually have a conversation?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have time for that. You would have time for that if you got off Facebook. You know, if you stopped creeping them from a distance. You know, it's so strange.
Yeah, man.
It's like the whole point of this project is what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to create conversations with
Yes,
people.
yes.
I want people to listen to this, and I
Yeah.
want them to dive in and say, this is a real human. This
Yeah.
is a human-to-human talking.
Yeah.
And not, I'm just going to get the footnotes of who he is.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to look at his picture, and I'm going to rip him apart in my
Right.
how I think he is. I want people to hear your voice, right?
Right.
And I want them to know that people are going outside, they're meeting at coffee shops,
Yeah.
they're getting stuff done, and it's okay to have a conversation,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, you know, I think on all levels, this is a phenomenal project because, one, me and you are having a true conversation. People are going to hear it, and it's also just, as you said, live voices. And I think it'll also inspire people to do that as well, you know? We have a personal relationship, but you're also going to be speaking to people you don't know. And,
Absolutely.
you know, for me, just like a quick story, I work at a liquor store right now, and I had met a native guy who actually came in to steal, and I started having a conversation with him afterward, and you know, he was telling me some very deep things just about his life, and you know, so it's like, just take the time. Everybody has a story, and you know, it's not gonna, you're not really gonna hear it over the internet. You know, you really
No.
gotta, it's in person, it's live, it's organic, it's authentic. You know, that's how life is made, you know.
Let's go to that movie.
Yeah, okay.
All right, okay, I'll give you a couple movies,
Yeah,
all right?
yeah.
You don't have to just say one, but what's a couple movies then?
For me, what came to mind as we were talking was Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, Shawshank Redemption, No Word of a Lie, is like one of my top 3 favorite movies of
Absolutely,
all time.
I'm sure.
Period. It's magnificent.
Yeah, that movie hit me. I watched it a lot when I was younger, and that movie hit me at that time. And what other movie would I say? I'm trying to think of some with like Denzel Washington, because he's a phenomenal actor. Antoine Fisher, that movie. It's based on a true story.
Okay.
And yeah, so
I've never seen
check
it.
that one out. Yeah, it's with him. It's I'm trying to. He deals with the kid is in the Navy, and he had ran away into the Navy because he had a difficult life, and he meets Denzel Washington, who becomes like a mentor, father figure,
Right.
and he just kind of helps him into manhood. And yeah, so that makes me think of Fences, the movie with Denzel Washington. I think it came out in 2017.
All right. Well, it's fairly recent.
Yeah,
movie,
yeah.
Okay.
So that's fairly recent, and that was a powerful movie as well. I was the spoken word track that I'm going to release with my friend Tim. It's about manhood. So I was watching a lot of those kind of movies, just kind of seeing, you know, young men coming into their manhood and older men, just kind of that dynamic, that relationship, and sort of the falls of older men, and watching a lot of movies around that area and just try to understand that story, that process. So
Okay, I'll definitely check that out.
yeah, man.
I've actually been struggling to find some movies, to be honest.
Okay.
It just seems like there's so many out there that are just
Yeah.
clearly just to make money.
Yeah. I went recently to see Black Panther, and that's the first time I've been to the theaters in like 2 years. I don't really watch contemporary movies. I love old films.
Yeah.
But I just find, as you said, like so many box office so much money poured into them. They're losing the storyline. You know, it's looking so much like a movie now. It's not looking like reality anymore.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. Like, did you like Black Panther?
I like certain aspects of it. I was talking to a girl, and she was talking about they could have developed the storyline a little better and kind of the characters. So I found, you know, with a superhero movie, it's gonna rely much more on cinematics and action and stuff, and I'm much more of like a drama. I like watching stories unfold, so I felt like they could have delved deeper into because they're really interesting characters, and sort of that setting is crazy, you know. So
it's true, and you know, and I don't want to dig too deep into this because that's not what this podcast is about, but you know, definitely something that got me was the hype around it being such a black prominent movie, a prominently black movie, and that was revolutionary. And it's like, I wish that wasn't a conversation anymore. I wish, like, to me, it's not a prominently black movie. It's just a movie.
It's just a movie.
You know, like, we've already had a black president. Well, not us, but, you know, like, let's face it.
Man, it was the world.
Exactly. I mean, whoever's the president of the United States essentially is the president of the world on some level because they got some major power, right? Yeah. But, you know, we've had, like, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and we've had, you know, Obama, and, you know, we've had great victories in that revolutionary, you know, idea. And it's just so strange that behind this movie, this weird fanatical concept of you should go because there's a lot of black people in it, and it's a revolutionary thing. And if you don't go, you're racist. And it's like, oh man, it's just a Marvel movie. Yeah. It's like, whether it's all whites or all blacks, man. I just want it to be a good movie that doesn't lean too heavily on CGI.
For sure. You know, I used to get so entrenched in that topic. You know, just of like. Blackness and Afrocentric, you know, and I still am, you know. I walk proudly as a black man, but we have to understand this is generation. Maybe this movie is just for this generation, but there's a long history before this of live, real black men standing up for rights, universal rights, you know, across the board. So I'm not going to get lost in a movie when I have the real things to look at, you know.
I feel the revolution's actually in the name Black Panther. That's very tongue-in-cheek,
you know, and exactly. And I think you know, there was a group of people getting together to go to the movie, and I said, okay, are we talking about the Black Panthers before we go? You know, exactly. Is that what's going on? Because that's where the real revolution was, you know, and, you know, people losing their lives, people getting in chains and stuff like that. Like, that's where the real revolution was, and I always pay homage and pay attention to those things because I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be speaking to you. I wouldn't be on the platform that I am. I wouldn't be getting the exposure without those individuals. So the movie stands on the shoulders of many, many, many people that came before it.
That's brilliantly said. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Starting with saying I am, and I do believe that I am are the two most powerful words out there.
That is absolutely true.
What would you say right after those words?
I am true. I am a king. I am a son. I am Zaire.
That is incredible. See, I love asking that question because every time I've asked that question, I see the person I talk to and I look at them and I see them at that moment confirm with themselves that they know who they are, and I love that moment. I want to end this unlike any other thing I've done. I usually end it with that question, but are you up for giving a little spoken word?
Man, I was hoping you would ask.
Oh, fantastic. All right, well, just riff out a bit, and this is Zaire.
Yeah, so this is a piece that kind of sums up our whole conversation, and it came from a time when I was battling with a lot of the questions that we were talking about. So, do I even have a name? This is called The Wanderer's Way, but I got to change the name because it's more about finding myself. But yea, though I walk through the valley of the kings, I was told I can't be one. Father Time's adopted son, I'm just here to watch. Maybe master the art of mimicry and create copies, because I've been welcomed into a world already hard at work. Fish from a basket that could have been my casket in. Most days I wish it were. Is it a wanderer's curse to question answers? Like why what just is has never been what just is. Oh, great, I sense another existential crisis. Usually when one occurs, I avert it with these words, see. I've come to depend on this pen as the Q-tip with which I clean the wax out the universe's ears, then shout harsh somethings and wipe away my tears. But in more recent years, my voice in the void has become silenced by its deafening noise. The harrowing howls of sheep wrapped in wolves' clothes. How could I have known sooner rather than later their true nature, before I became a night owl perched upon a crescent moon far removed, trying to achieve peace by thinking and feeling deeply, sent down the river of life what then lies upstream. For me, it's almost certainly the celestial city, but what in the hell is this place? Where time is money and talk now too expensive, the human experience severely misunderstood as we mistake modernity for maturity, but I'm one to talk too comfortable taking an endless amount of mind walks, leading a life unlived hardly worthy of self-reflection yet. I'll never be here again. I must be. For some reason then. I said I must be. For some reason then. And maybe it has something to do with this pen.